entirely ignored it and ran for an embrace of high-stakes standardized testing as the only measure acceptable in terms of success in education. And the results have been pretty clear. Our standardized testing scores haven't done very well since then. We've seen scandals. We've seen parental protests. We've seen huge expenditures of money, and we've seen wild legislative flips from one extreme to the other. It's been a terrifying show of what happens when you commit to this kind of work. And as one of the members of the state of Ohio said when asked about why we go to standardized testing instead of love of learning, how important can love of learning be if you can't measure it?
In my experience with standardized testing, I would always feel confident with material going in, but I've always had test anxiety, which I feel like affected my scores.
But the tests we use are developing a different kind of thinking. And here's an example from the California Standards Test of a couple years ago. I'll give you the same 10 seconds that the kids have when they confront this question. In this particular one, John's solution to an equation is shown below. And the question is, which property of real numbers did John use for step 2? Take a quick look. How many of you think it was A? How many think it was B? How many think it was C? How many of you think it was D? Well, a few of you knew and remembered that, in fact, it's B, the zero product property of multiplication. But I noticed that many of the rest of you have nonetheless had successful and satisfying lives.
We can't expect standardized tests alone to reliably tell us how smart someone is, how diplomats will handle a tough situation, or how brave a firefighter might turn out to be.
I do not feel like standardized tests are an accurate representation of one's intelligence. I've always had hard times taking standardized tests, which always limited my options for schools, but my GPA always met the requirements. And now I'm going to get a 4.0 this semester, so I don't feel like it's an accurate representation.
But in fact, this skill that we spend so much time on is practically useless. Dozens of studies have shown that the kinds of standardized tests we use predict almost nothing about your success later in life. And if you think about it, when have you ever gone to the office and gotten a piece of paper with a set of questions and predetermined answers that you could check off, turn in, and go home because your work is done? Has not happened to me.
My high school had both SAT and ACT workshops, so I went through both of those, and then when I took the actual standardized test, I was able to pass them both with the scores that I needed for the college that I wanted, but if I didn't have the workshops, I don't think that would have been possible.
One of my friends in high school did 100 points better after doing a lot of tutoring than before. So if not everybody has the same money to pay for tutoring or like other reasons they can't do tutoring, then I feel like we're not comparing apples to apples with people who have access to those kind of resources and people that don't.
And students who are confused by examples on tests that contain unfamiliar cultural references may do poorly, telling us more about the test taker's cultural familiarity than their academic learning.
I think that standardized tests aren't the be-all, end-all of measuring intelligence because they disadvantage people from lower socioeconomic classes. I went to a magnet school, which provided me with really good resources so that I would do well on the standardized test, but I know that not everyone has those advantages, and as a result, it's possible that my scores were higher than people who didn't have the same advantages as me, but might have the same intelligence.